Thanks, Ray Otis. We return to the Bell Center with a chat with you and some questions from our fine listeners here in Kaiton's Corner. You take the center stage here on this particular program, and we're thrilled to bring it to you again this year, especially for new hockey fans. If you've got a question about the game, whether it's about the on-ice, the off-ice, the rules, anything about the history of the National Hockey League or the Hurricanes in general, in this, the 10th anniversary season of the Canes, just send your question along to Chuck K. That's Chuck and the letter K at CarolinaHurricanes.com. Chuck K at CarolinaHurricanes.com. Always remember to provide us with your place of residence and your full name, and we will answer your question on a future second intermission. Hurricanes will have a little bit of time off between now and next Friday when they go to Pittsburgh to continue the road swing. But we hope to hear from you, and we'll answer your question on a future second intermission, as we do for Gary Timmis, who is from Holly Springs, North Carolina, a proud 10-year season ticket holder. And Gary, thanks for your question tonight. It's a simple one. 10 years ago, October 3rd, the first ever NHL regular season game was played in North Carolina, and it took place at the Greensboro Coliseum. And can I name any of the players who played in that game who were in the RBC Center last night for the Hurricane game against the Canadiens? If so, how many were there? Thanks for your consideration. And for those of you who don't go all the way back to our history in 1997, moving from Hartford to Raleigh, with that intermediate stop in Greensboro for a couple of years, let me refresh your memory that the Hurricanes took on these, the Pittsburgh Penguins. The Penguins back then had a couple of illustrious players, one of whom is going to enter the Hall of Fame next month, and one who probably should follow suit at some point in his career. And they're now in the Hurricane organization. So I don't know if Gary is trying to throw a trick question at me. I don't think so. I think this is a legitimate question. But I've come up with 4 people who were former players and still do play, who were in the building for the game between the Hurricanes and the Montreal Canadiens when these two teams met back on October 3rd of this year. And one guy I'm thinking of that should be in the Hall of Fame is the newly named consultant for goaltending development, Tom Barrasso, who was playing for the Pittsburgh Penguins that day. The Hurricanes dropped a 4-3 decision, a very exciting game. There were some fights, some good scoring plays, some excitement, a lot of electricity, over 21,000 fans in the Greensboro Coliseum that particular evening, and Tom Barrasso was in the nets for Pittsburgh that particular night. And Barrasso, who I'm not sure he was in the building, but I'm going to put him in as one of the 4 guys I'm thinking about, because unless he was in Albany or going to see another developed goaltender in the Hurricane organization now, or just was sitting at home, if he was in Raleigh, chances are he was at the game, although I didn't hear officially, and Tom Barrasso would be one of those 4. Obviously, the newly named assistant general manager of the Hurricanes now and director of player development, Ronnie Francis, who was a member of the Pittsburgh Penguins, was also in the building. In fact, he scored a goal against the Hurricanes in that game for the Penguins. And Jeff Daniels was a player, now the assistant coach of the Hurricanes, was a player for the Hurricanes that year. He was on the ice doing his level best and killing penalties and playing his normal cerebral brand of hockey, as we've come to know Daniels to be. A very smart player, great leader, a quiet leader off the ice, and an excellent example for young players, now an assistant and doing a fine job. He was on the ice. And the only man who has the distinction of still being an active player in the NHL is obviously number 2, the redhead, Glenn Wesley, who performed for the Hurricanes on that particular evening, as he has for all 10 Hurricane seasons and then some. He was acquired, just for your information, in 1994 from the Boston Bruins for 3 first-round picks by Jim Rutherford. It was the first deal that Rutherford made as general manager of the Hartford Whalers back in that what turned out to be lockout-shortened season of 94-95. The summer of 94, Glenn Wesley became a Hartford Whaler and has continued on as a Carolina Hurricane. And except for about a couple of weeks stint where unfortunately he broke his ankle when he was traded to Toronto several years ago, he has been in this organization ever since. So those are the 4 players I've been able to come up with, Gary. So Gary Timmis, thank you very much for your question tonight here in Kaiton's Corner. 4 players that are still around who were actually in the building. Now, you didn't have to say they were playing in that game last October 3rd, a week and a half ago. But those are the four that I think were in the building for this game, and only one of whom, as I said, Glenn Wesley, was on the ice. Kind of an esoteric question, but a good one here from Gary Timmis of Holly Springs. And if you've got a question for me, send it along to Chuck K at CarolinaHurricanes.com. That's Chuck and the letter K at CarolinaHurricanes.com. Give us your full name, where you're emailing from, and we'll answer your question on a future second intermission. As I again say to you, the Hurricanes will take a little hockey sabbatical till Friday night when they go to Pittsburgh to take on the Penguins, and we'll have another edition of this program then. I'm Chuck Kaiton.